Hello there, everybody. How are we all doing today? Obviously, as you probably are aware by now, I'm the common sense guy, or as some people like to call me, Jason. How are we all doing? And welcome to anybody that's new to the channel or watching us for the first time. I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different to what me and Ogre would normally do. As you can see, I'm actually by myself at this moment in time. Ogre will be joining me later on, probably from around 10 o'clock onwards, hopefully. But I have put an open mic for people that want to jump into this hangout. You are more than welcome to. I'm going to do a Q&A. I've also got a couple of stories. Well, I've got one story that I really want to talk about, and that's to do with the Jeremy Corbyn and the anti-Semitic vibes that we're all getting off of him, and why certain people still don't actually choose to actually believe what's actually going on, or just the sheer idiocy of Jeremy Corbyn in general. But that's what it is. First of all, quick question for everybody that's out in chat. Can everybody hear me okay? If that's okay. Memes, I can see what your question is, and my favorite color is either blue or red. So kind of in between. I like both of them, to be fair. I know that they're very boyish colors, though, so I do know that much, and I'm sorry, but I would say it's between blue and red. Those are my two favorite colors, to be honest with you. Does anybody else have any questions? This is going to be a Q&A as well, with some of the stories that I have laid out. So if anybody does want to come in and talk to me, that is fucking fantastic. If people just want to ask me questions in a chat, that's also okay as well. It is actually going to be one of those streams today where you probably get to know a little bit more about me. Most importantly, there is no silly questions today. If you want to know something, as long as it's not too personal, I will let you guys know. So any questions that you want to know and want to ask about me and have always wanted to ask, go ahead, ask them. I will try my best, so long as it's not too personal, to answer them as best as I can. Yes, memes, I would actually have to say probably purple. If I mashed them together, I would definitely like the purple hurricane. Jason Berto, if you want the reference. Well, Mr. Aaron Telford, if Mr. Corbyn is about to visit your hometown of Telford, I imagine it's to do with the Labour Council that's still in place there, and the fact that they're still going on about everything else that's going around. What is my quest? I suppose I could be very funny here and go, my quest is to be the very best, better than anyone there ever was. My real dream is to catch them all, but my real test... Sorry. Sorry about that. No, my real quest would probably be to try and unite as many people as I can while doing it with under the actual ideology, or under the principles of the fact that everybody is created equally, and the idea of secularism, basically a liberal principle that everybody is created equally. To be honest, that's basically trying to put the opposite sides of the spectrum, so to speak, or the right-left paradigm, as Mr. Alex Jones would always like to scream and shout. I would have to say that that's what I would really want. I would want people from both sides to realize that they are more similar than they are apart. To quote you, Mr. Memes. Yeah, you got your answer. It's to be the very best. It's to be the best wizard. Mr. Aaron Telford, yeah, I really do have trouble trusting Mr. Corbyn at this moment in time, especially with the fact of the story that I actually have lined up at the minute, which is Jeremy Corbyn saying, yeah, I might have been there. I mean, I've got pictures of me holding the wreath and that, but I don't think that I laid it down. I didn't think that I took part. Yeah, kind of a little bit untrustworthy at the moment. Just any questions will do, Mr. Barkley. Any questions will do at all. It's just something to knock a couple of minutes off before we get into the story of Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, I think I can make that last probably half hour. So hopefully, to begin with, if we have half hour people slowly coming in, then we've got more questions and things like that for people to be able to ask or answer, or for people to just jump in anyway. I'm actually very surprised that the memes of destruction hasn't actually jumped in, as it would have been something I would have thought he would have done, personally. Oh, controversial. Am I pushing? I could be pushing for somebody to come in. I just thought it'd be interesting, considering that a lot of people watch my videos. Well, I say a lot of people to me watch my videos, but I don't think that a lot of people actually truly know me and truly know what my actual politics are. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to have an actual idea of what my politics actually are, but nobody really knows my ideas, my ideals in actual fact. I mean, apart from memes, who else here would actually know that I actually want a conjunction of socialist ideas and capitalist ideas to be able to run an economy? Oh, yeah, you are, aren't you? You lucky fucking bastard. Oh, he's at Disney. But that's what I was trying to get at. Who here would actually know that, apart from memes, because I've told him before? Who here would actually know that that would be part of my ideology, that I'd want two contrasting ideas and views to actually conjoin to be one? Because I think that the way that Marx actually originally writ his manifesto, or writ the Communist Manifesto, so to speak, was to actually intertwine both of them together, to intertwine the idea of a social netting with the capitalist groupings. I think that is the best way for any economy in itself to be able to run. You then have the social netting of a socialist country, which is generally great, something like Great Britain is. But then if you actually put more private sectors with hospitals and things like that into schools, then you have a competition status, which means that the competition would have to be the fact that the national schools would be cheaper for obviously people to go to because it's free and run by taxes and so on and so forth. Then you have private schools that are next to it that don't actually have to be that expensive, but have to keep up with the same quality of teaching. Now, to justify their place of being private schools, they're going to have to recruit better teachers, the same as they have done obviously in this country already. And that's the same thing with private hospitals compared to nationalized hospitals. If you have nationalized hospitals, you have a national service, which means that if you actually had a privatized hospital that was next to it, then it would be a case of those two would cancel each other out. The privatized hospital wouldn't go too high on the actual point of a social contract, as in a social payment scheme, as in insurance. Sorry, that's the word I was really looking for. As in the idea of insurance, because you already have a nationalized hospital. So that nationalized hospital would always keep the insurance levels down, but would keep the quality of the hospital higher than the national hospitals, simply because they have to justify why they would actually be paying for it. I think this level of competition between a national state and a private state would actually be able to make things climb up higher and higher and actually elevate us through competition in itself. The reason why socialism does fail is because there's no levels of competition. So if you put the natural competition of privatization in there, then it's always going to level up, so to speak, to quote Mr. Memes. Do I know how to fly a helicopter? Do you need lessons? I really need to learn how to fly a helicopter, and yes, I do need lessons. If anybody out there wants to give me lessons to fly a helicopter, that would be fucking amazing. I would absolutely love that. That would be properly amazing. No, that's exactly correct, Mr. Jennings. I actually honestly do think that money is better spent when not filtered through government hands. I do. But that's the reason why I say that we need to have both systems in operation, and actually properly in operation, not not pick one or the other, but let both of them run at their independent courses. Because if you have a nationalized system, then it has to keep pace with the privatized one. But at the same time, the privatized one cannot go too much higher on price than a nationalized one, because otherwise it doesn't justify why you would use a free service when you have a private service that's 3 times, 4 times the price. It has to be in a comparison, and then it would pull up the national service, then it would pull up the private, and then the competition would actually make things a far better form of economy. At least that's what my opinion is anyway. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at. A lot of people wouldn't actually think that of me because I'm quite a capitalist kind of guy. I have kind of capitalist points of views generally, mostly. I do think that the free market in itself is the best way of sorting things out. But at the same time, I do believe in having a form of a social netting because there are people in our society, unfortunately, that can't actually look after themselves. And though I would not count myself as one, as being disabled, I am one. I am one that is currently looking after myself on a form of a social netting. So unfortunately, I am one of those types of people that does need social netting. Without social netting, I would have fallen through the cracks. So that's why I'm probably a little bit more biased towards the social netting and a welfare system, because it helps me and helps me secure myself, makes me be able to live. Exactly, yeah. I mean, the thing is with a nationalised service, with a privatised service, is that it could be quite easily done as if you have a privatized insurance, then you don't have to pay a national insurance, because the national insurance is completely almost ring post for the NHS in itself. So if you have a nationalized insurance, for instance, for the private hospitals, then you don't have to pay your national insurance because you're using it to pay for privatized hospitals. That would also give more incentive for the government themselves to bring up the actual conditions of the nationalized hospital to make you consider going back into it. Hey, Mr. Mad Dodge Productions, how you are doing? It's an open mic tonight. If you go to the top of the page, there is a Hangouts link. I'll get there. I can't speak tonight. I haven't even drunk anything either. But no, there is a Hangouts link at the top of the chat at this moment in time. If people would like to pop on, having a Q&A session, so anybody can ask me any questions that they want, talk to me about anything that they want, have a discussion about anything that they want as well. As long as it's not too personal, obviously, more than happy to have anybody on as well. So anybody that wants to come on, they are more than welcome to. I was just going through some of my points about how some people don't understand that I would like the idea of socialism and capitalism to actually merge into one system. Though I wouldn't have an idea on what to call it. Not an idea, actually. Not an idea. That's fine, Mr. Mad Dodge. Nobody expects you to actually come on. Good luck on the paper, though, mate, and take your time with it. It's more important than YouTube. Right, if nobody's got any more questions at all, or if somebody has, then please feel free to leave them in chat. I'm going to move on to the Jeremy Corbyn story. I'm actually going to go away for a little bit, as in I won't be able to see you for a while. I will check back every now and again when I go onto a rampage. But apart from that, I think that I'm just going to stick to the story for just a little bit. Just a little bit. So with that being said, here's the story. So with the actual story at this moment in time, we have Jeremy Corbyn thinks he did not lay a wreath to Palestine terrorists, according to Jeremy Corbyn. So let's actually go through the story very, very quickly, shall we? The Labour leader says he wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who has died in every terrorist incident everywhere. That's all well and good. All well and good. But why does that mean that you have to lay a wreath to, should we say, one of the most horrendous attacks from Munich, from a terrorist activity, from terrorists in general? Why would you want to lay a wreath down to memorialize the terrorists? And remember, the terrorists, not the people that actually were their victims. And though the news media will not mention this, they were tortured, these victims. They weren't just killed outright. They were tortured to the point where their legs were cut, to the point where their arms were cut, to the point where their bollocks was actually cut off. And at this point in time, Jeremy Corbyn is saying, "Ooh, I wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who has died in every terrorist incident." Well, that's really great and really nice and very moralistic of you, or moral of you even. But kind of destroying the people that you're actually trying to win over to your side? I suppose that's where the question is. What people are you actually looking for? Are you looking for the 250,000 so Jews that are in London? Or are you looking to over the 4 point something million Muslims that are in London at this moment in time? I wonder what demographic that you could be after. I wonder. So, Jeremy Corbyn said he was present at the memorial, pick Embassy of Palestine in Turkey. So, Jeremy Corbyn has admitted being present at a wreath-laying memorial for Palestine terrorists accused of being behind the murder of Israeli Olympic athletes in 1972. Now, remember, these people, even though it says that they were alleged or accused, they were sentenced for it. So don't go around thinking that it's alleged or accused. No, they were sentenced for it. And he, first of all, Jeremy Corbyn was saying that he wasn't there. It was a different memorial service. It was a different service that he went to. He laid a wreath at a different place. Now he's actually admitted to being present at a wreath laying for the memorial. Now, if you look at the picture again, he's actually holding on to the wreath. And he's actually one of the people that is alleged at this moment in time to have been helping to lay it. Which, if you look over here where my cursor is, he's actually holding the wreath and helping to lay it with that gentleman there, as far as I can work out. But then again, I could be wrong. So the Labour leader revealed he was there, but did not think he was involved in the wreath laying. That in itself proves the fact that he's actually lying, because how could you not think or remember if you helped lay a wreath or if you didn't in a particular area for a particular event? In other words, that is trying to suggest, for instance, if you allow me, this is hypothesis, that Jeremy Corbyn himself has been to so many memorials and so many points that one, he either didn't remember, or two, couldn't remember the placing of actually doing it. Or the most likely opposition or the most likely point would probably be the fact that he actually did it and is lying about it and trying to use weasel words not to prove or disprove what he did or he didn't do, to play both sides, for instance, at this moment in time. So the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the news deserves unequivocal condemnation from everyone. And it does. It really does. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn was just a backbencher, as he always was and always should be, or should have been, then nobody would really ask for his resignation. This is not a case of people saying, oh, this is really bad just because he's Jeremy Corbyn. No, this is really bad because he is the leader of the opposition. This man, with his sentiments and ideas, could become the Prime Minister of the whole United Kingdom. This man that cannot remember if he did or if he did not lay a wreath at a particular point or a particular place could become a Prime Minister of us. He also couldn't remember if he was there or if he was there, and now he can remember he was there. Do we want that type of a weasel man to be Prime Minister of the UK? Now, I know for a fact from my own positions and my own ideas that no, I don't. So it comes after pictures surfaced over the weekend of Mr. Corbyn with a wreath at a cemetery in Tunisia 4 years ago. Critics claimed he was standing near the grave of a group of terrorists behind a siege at the Munich Olympics in 1972, which saw 11 Israeli athletes and coaches and 1 police officer killed. As you can see, they're the terrorists in action at that moment in time there. So, Mr. Corbyn's spokesman has said he was commemorating 47 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on a all over the place because I'm concentrating on the advert and I shouldn't be. So Mr. Corbyn's spokesperson had said he was commemorating 47 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on a Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO base. But an article in the Morning Star, Mr. Corbyn wrote after the ceremony, claimed that wreaths were laid for others killed by Mossad agents in Paris in 1991. So when a person can't actually get their story straight, it's either a case of they are going maybe a little mad, or is it a case of they actually know what they're doing and they're just trying to conflate issues to confuse everybody? Because at that moment in time, so to speak, everybody's got a different story that they can run with. So, Israeli Secret Service is accused of assassinating those behind the 1972 siege. And, sorry, I don't have a point with the Secret Service going after terrorists and assassinating them and killing them. I do not have a single problem with that. So, the PLO's liaison officer with foreign intelligence agencies, Atef Biezio, was killed in Paris in 1992. Mr. Corbyn said last year he absolutely was not honouring any terrorist. He had only laid a wreath to those killed in the airstrike. Now, I would play the video, but unfortunately I do not have my normal microphone, but you can see it all here. I will link it in the description box below for anybody that wants to read it. Corbyn answers to me saying he laid a wreath in Tunisia when I asked about Munich massacre perpetrator. Interesting. But speaking to himself for the first time since the new photos emerged, Mr. Corbyn was asked about the wreath laid to the terrorist. Mr. Corbyn said, "A wreath was indeed laid by some of those who attended the conference for those who were killed in Paris in 1992. I was present when it was laid. I don't think I was actually involved in it. I was there because I wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who has died in every terrorist incident everywhere." Fair enough. I can understand that point. I really can understand that point. The only problem is, are you celebrating and memorializing the terrorists, or are you memorializing the actual victims of said terrorism? I think that's one of the most important distinctions that we need to find out. If people cannot already assume what was going on by the fact of how many times the story has changed, and yes, I know it's only guilt by association or guilt by, I don't know, a Twitter court, it's still a case of in itself that circumstantial evidence keeps on piling up to the accusations that are made. And yes, you have people like Sargon of Akkad that are coming out and saying, oh, it's only a smear campaign. It's only a smear campaign. There's other people on other streams at this moment in time that are going through and telling everybody what's going on with the Muslim Brotherhood hand gesture that he was doing. Has been pictured doing. You can go on Twitter and search that in the search bar. You'll end up finding it. He'd done 2 different sects for the Muslim Brotherhood, hand gestures, to say that he was supporting them. Though I suppose the actual bit out of that would be, oh, somebody asked me to do a particular pose. I had no idea what the pose was. I suppose that will be what will come out next. So moving on to the last little bit of the story, and then I can come back to you lovely, lovely people. Because we have to end it, you cannot pursue peace through a cycle of violence. The only way you pursue peace is through a cycle of dialogue. Yes, but to have a cycle of dialogue, you need to speak to both sides. Unfortunately for you, Mr. Corbyn, you have only spoken to one set of peoples. And I wonder who they are. So, Mr. Netanyahu, I can't say his name, responded by saying, "The laying of the wreath by Jeremy Corbyn on the graves of the terrorists who perpetrated the Munich massacre and his comparison of Israel to the Nazis deserves unequivocal condemnation from everyone, left, right, and everything in between." And I would actually have to say, I completely and utterly endorse those words. I really, really do. I completely and utterly endorse those views and those points. I really, really do. So how's everybody thinking and feeling at this moment in time? I've probably missed quite a bit at this moment in time, which is unfortunate for me. I'm just going to take a couple of seconds to quickly skim read what's been said. So hopefully nothing's come up, because I know how much you lot are bastards. MC, I can see that you've made a couple of comments. I don't know if you're free. I'm not trying to goad you into anything, so don't think that I'm going to draw you in just to have a screaming or a shouting match with you. But if you would like to come in, I would love for you to come in. I've just sent the link out to you in the side chat. That also goes for anybody else that wants to come in that can. Please come in, have a chat, have a talk. Let's have some questions and some dialogue. I'm a bit bored. So, yeah, come in, have a chat. Be interesting to take your points and how you see it as well. I know how I see it, but I'm trying to censor myself a tiny bit. I don't want to go out of my way to call somebody something which could be interpreted as liable. So I don't want to go too far on that one. So if people wanted to come in and have a chat with me about anything, it doesn't have to even be about the Jeremy Corbyn reef-laying point. It can be about anything. Please come in, have a chat with me. I'd be very, very interested to hear your points of view, your ideas on what should happen, even if it's about Brexit, even if it's about Donald Trump, even if it's about Antifa, whatever it is, come in, have a chat. I'd be very, very happy to have a chat with any of you. You all know that. I try to be as respectful as I possibly can. Yes, sometimes I do get a little bit heated. I can't help that. I'm just passionate about some of the stuff that I like doing. But yeah, please come in. Please have a chat with us. It'd be very, very interesting if you can do that. Hello there, MC. How you doing? Not ready yet. Fair enough. Right, I've got MC that's just come in. I think he's sorting out his rig or microphone and headphones and whatnot. If anybody else wants to come in as well, please do. As I said, any sort of questions, any sort of topics that anybody wants to come in and talk about, please come in. It'd be interesting.
Can you hear me now?
I can indeed, Mr. MC. How are you doing?
All right. I can't stay very long, but I'll stay as long as I can. How's that?
Yeah, perfect for me. Thank you very much.
No, you can see Jeremy Corbyn is not just. He's not just there.
Mm-hmm.
He's not standing in the background. He's got his hands on the wreath as they're laying it. That means you're participating in the ceremony.
Yeah.
Don't give me all this crap about, oh, no, I was just there to observe. Bull crap.
Yep.
Now, I realize that and I'm somewhat reluctant because, to be honest, politics in England, I'm not an expert of. So I tend to avoid getting too far into the weeds. I don't understand certain aspects of your structure and how things go. But as far as I'm concerned, a Marxist is a Marxist, and that's his goal. He doesn't give a rat's ass about anything. He doesn't care about people dying or anything else. He's like the rest of the frickin' Marxists out there. He's only doing it because this will gain him favors to when he takes over, and then can start shoving people in ovens.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with the final bit that you said, but everything up to the final bit, I definitely and completely whole endorse everything that you just said. But no, I would actually agree with that. I mean, you obviously have pictures of Jeremy Corbyn as well participating in prayer to remember the people that were, in his opinion, were martyred, as in the actual terrorists, not the victims.
Yeah,
so
I remember the '72 Olympics. I remember this situation because it was all over television, even though I was very young. And at the time, the Olympics were huge. Or you got to understand that these were huge national events. The world television was on the Olympics and how the Olympics were taking place. And in this case, the Olympics were taking place in Munich, which meant that the people in Europe were able to get live feeds of what was going on.
Mm.
All right, in comparison to the delay that we had generally in the United States. But even in the United States, when all that took place, all right, it became instant news where they were giving us updates continuously on the news. It wasn't so much about the you know the Olympics anymore, right? And
No,
it
it was
was a
about the
great,
terrorist attack.
right. And for those who don't know, they basically captured terror. They basically captured Israeli athletes.
Yes.
Were holding them hostage, and then decided to kill them, and a number of them got away. And the Mossad said, "You know what? We're not going to let that stand. We're going to hunt these people down." Right?
Yeah.
And that's what the movie, if you've seen the movie The Sword of Gideon, that's what The Sword of Gideon was all about.
Yeah. No, that's completely and utterly correct. I suppose that we should as well point out that these people that were actually held by these terrorists at this point in time, or that point in time, sorry, correction, were actually being tortured. And as I said before, they were having their legs cut up, they were having their arms cut up, and towards the end, before they were killed, for the male ones, which was almost all of them that were left, had their bollocks chopped off.
Yeah, and that's typical of what was going on with them. There was a number of terrorist incidents that happened, all right, during around that time frame. People don't remember how up in the how 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 much turmoil there was, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
Right? You're coming off of Kent State, all right. You've had a number of bombings. You're having a bombing a month happening here in the U.S.
Yep.
Right. People, and all this makes this impression. And so, okay, well, the Olympics are happening, and then for like a 3-week period, everyone was expecting to be able to get away from this and just cheer for the nation, cheer for their athletes, and get away from all the violence. And at that time, everyone was looking at the Olympics as, oh, this is where we can all get together peacefully and forget about all the tragedies in the world. And the next thing you know, we're dealing with this.
Yeah, another tragedy, which obviously wasn't set up. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten about the Madrid bombing, the fact that obviously it was done underground and everything. Everybody's forgotten how that was the first time that any sort of major public entity was actually taken, well, exploded and everything. People didn't really take into consideration what was actually going on at that point in time. A lot of people always go back to, for us in the UK anyway, always go back to how the Troubles were and everything else like that. The thing that you can say about what the Troubles were, as in the IRA going against, obviously, United Kingdom in itself, is that at least they had a political belief because of it. Now, that's not me supporting them. I can put myself in their position and I can understand where they're kind of coming from. It's coming from a deep indoctrination of a political ideology, and to this point and to this day, it's still going on. But for the idea of terrorism in itself, I can never condone in itself, because terrorism doesn't go to the people that you are fighting. It goes to the citizenry of who you are fighting. And to me, that's a form of cowardice. If you're going to fight a nation, you don't fight the nation's citizenry, you fight the nation's army, or you go after the government itself. You don't go after the citizens. That's why I would never endorse any form of terrorism ever. Even if it was us that needed to do something similar to terrorism, I wouldn't condone it, because you don't go after citizens that are not involved, in my opinion.
What is not involved?
Non-complicit, as in didn't have a choice in if we bombed you or if we decided that we were going to get against you or not. For instance, the idea of when people say, oh, the only reason why some terrorists come after us is because of Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, bullshit on that. Stop destroying the fucking citizenry, because we had the biggest protest ever in our creation of a nation to make sure that we didn't go. We still went. That was government's decision, not the citizenry's decision.
That's true, but that doesn't. You got to remember what warfare is.
I understand what warfare is.
Do you? Because warfare is an action against not just the enemy's combatants. All right, especially when they're in the quote unquote civilian clothes. All right, it's against the nation state or the ideal of what that proto state or whatever state you're dealing with is.
Yeah, but it's still a case of it's the state, not the citizenry. Not unless you are getting the whole citizenry to fight as a militia. Then in that case, yeah, you have an argument. But
well, okay, what do you talk? Then how do you sit up there and deal with the fact that what they do is plant bombs onto children, onto 5-year-olds?
then at that point in time, you have to take the children out. But that doesn't mean that you take every single child out in that block. But if a child's got a bomb that's strapped to him and he's running towards you, yes, shoot the child in the head.
All right, but then you're running the risk. Why aren't you look at how they're defining life? Okay, look at how life is being defined by these people. And when I'm talking about these people, I'm talking. People got to understand. I'm not talking Islamists. I'm talking Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
Right, specifically the Arab subculture. Right, they look at their own children, all right, as devices, all right, to plant bombs, as a transportation device for bombs. All right. Now, normally we would blow up, all right, buildings and things like that were part of those kind of devices if it was a regular device.
Sure.
And yet, because they know that we won't do that, all right, we're reluctant to do that because we have a different view of life. Okay,
yes.
Is the only reason that they're using their children that way. But they will use their children that way, whether we like it or not. That is their intention.
Agreed. I completely agree with your statement. The only thing that I disagree with is the fact of why should we lower ourselves down to their standings and to their ideals? Just because that they're already in the mud, fighting in the mud, doesn't mean that we have to force ourselves down into the mud to fight with them.
You might have to.
I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm not saying you wouldn't.
You got to understand when you're dealing with it. When you're dealing with, okay, this is something that's hard for people to grasp, right? But when you're dealing with an insurgency, and that's what you're talking about with this case, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking about a type of insurgency. When you're dealing with these kind of wars, they're nasty, and the reason they're nasty is because of the limitations being placed upon the citizenry. Yeah. You can't just make these nice, neat little decisions because those are not available to you. You may.
I agree. I agree. War's dirty. War's dirty. War's bloody. Indecisions, unfortunately, happen. The wrong decisions under heat of intense action happens. War is unfortunately what it is. It's destructive by its own nature. But to necessarily fall down to their standards means that we've not necessarily lost the war, but we've lost a set of principles that we were fighting for in the first place.
It's not necessarily falling down to their standards. You're not falling down to their standards. You're not doing that necessarily, right? But you're accepting what warfare actually is going to entail in these situations. You just acknowledge it. The difference is falling down to their standards would be strapping bombs to our own children, all right, and blowing them up. That would be dropping down to their standards, all right. But at the same time, the fact that we have to use such for lack of a better term, harsh methods.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the word I'm really looking for. They're distasteful methods, right? Doesn't mean that somehow we're losing our own humanity.
Of course.
Granted, it's dangerous. I understand that you can lose yourself into that. Okay, I understand where the threats on all this,
Sure.
But what the danger of this is. But you can't just ignore it. You can't just say, okay, these people think like we do, because they don't. You can't just ignore the fact that they're willing to sit up there and put bombs onto their own children and think of them as nothing more than a platform, all right, for a weapons platform.
Yep.
And if you go in there and you start to say, you know what, we're going to have to take care of this, whether you like it or not, it may come down to the fact that you have to kill a whole heck of a lot of them before the rest of the people realize from a leadership standpoint that we can't afford to have these leaders anymore, and then do something to correct it.
I agree that the best way of winning any war is making their own militia or own people that are fighting it turn against their own leaders, and by doing that, you're proving the fact that they don't have the leadership to actually win. That's the way that most wars are won, and I completely and utterly agree with you on that. The point that I disagree is that, yes, if you have a child that's running towards you with a bomb strapped on it, by all means, sniper the shit out of the child, because he's now a weapon. He's not a child anymore. So don't think me as a passive person. I don't have a problem with shooting children if they're turning themselves into weapons, or into women that are running with you at a bomb on their chest. I have no problem with them being shot at any point in time. But to then go into a different village and then go, oh, okay, well, we're going to shoot these women and children instead. I'm not saying that you're suggesting that, but just because that one child run to you with a bomb doesn't mean that all of them are being. To shoot them in itself, I can't condone that in any sense of the imagination.
It's not a matter of condoning it. It's a matter of accepting the fact that you may have to do it. All right. And what's more is that you may have to sit up and realize that you can't give them. I'll try and explain this. You can't allow them to determine that the option, all right, is or that their children, if they're willing to use, here, let me re-say this again.
Sure.
Well, okay, you can't allow them then to sit up there and say, you know what, we're going to use these children as human shields, because they're not human shields to them. All right, I mean, they don't care about the children, and you can't then allow the fact that a child might be in an area. You can't allow that to affect the fact that you're going to have to go in there and destroy the enemy. If the enemy is in that area, even if you run the risk of having to kill children, you go ahead and go and do it.
I know, I agree.
You don't have a choice.
No, I agree. I honestly do agree that if you know that the only sort of form of ammunition, whether it's a child running at you with an AK-47 or a revolver, or a fucking necessarily even with a rock running towards you, if it's got something on it, I have no problem with the army in itself in that point in time in a war situation doing that type of thing. The problem I have is when the children are not running at you, even if you have an idea that they may do.
Why should I allow my troops to be endangered first? When you know where the enemy is, when you know that they're hiding behind these people, why should I have to allow, all right, my troops to actually be in danger, all right, just to protect their children?
Because that's what we're supposed to be fighting for. The fact is,
we're not fighting for that. We're fighting to put an end to that ideology. You're not going to sit up there and put an end to that ideology.
I understand.
By saying, you know what, we're going to shy away from this. The whole reason that they do that is they say that we are weak and won't sit up there and go to that length. And they tell that to the people that when they take over a village and everything else, that the U.S. is weak, that the U.S. won't do this, that they don't have the cojones to do it, and therefore you're safe. And every action that we do that does exactly what you're saying, where we're restrained, where we don't go in, where we try to talk it out, just reinforces that belief. And the longer we do it, the worse the situation becomes. It's the same thing that what happened in Fallujah. We basically almost totally destroyed Fallujah. Why? Because 3 separate times we surrounded Fallujah, and 3 separate times we backed away when they said, "Okay, we're gonna stop this." It wasn't until the end that we went in there, and the killing and the death rate within Fallujah, not only for our own troops, but for theirs, was absolutely horrendous. Now, even then, I disagreed with how we went in. We should have just surrounded the city and said, "You got 48 hours, all right, to walk through our areas without anything on you, all right, with just your hands. You come through these checkpoints, and after 48 hours, we should have leveled everything in that city to the ground." And we should have sit up there and had Al Jazeera, CNN, and everybody with film cameras all around there watching it and filming it as we went brick by brick and frickin' sector by sector and block by block with B-52s and leveled the entire place.
Yeah, I still don't have any discrepancies in what you said. Because what you said was you would give the women and children a chance, and the men that are not willing to fight, obviously, a chance to leave.
I would give them a chance once.
Yes, no, I agree, and that's what we should do. And that's why I'm saying.
But we're not doing any of that. No, we're still put, back into this. Oh no, we don't want to do this. If they start firing at us and there's a crowded area, you don't fire back. You just accept the fact that you're going to get casualties.
I disagree with that. If there's somebody is firing at you, whether it's a crowded area or not, the initiative's already been taken by the person who's firing at you. You should have free right to fire back because you need to defend your own life. Your own life is more important.
That's the problem. Those are the kinds of rules of engagement. Those are the kind of things that people are expecting. When we do a drone strike because we know that we got a terrorist in a certain area, right? And then what do I get crying about this? Oh, it was a wedding, and there were innocent women and children. No, they're not innocent women and children. We were after a specific individual, and we're not going to allow them to use their own children as human shields. And the sooner they understand that. And I realize that sounds harsh, but it's something that the American press, or as far as the Defense Department, which backed up by our politicos, should have been able to do. After we did something like that, the first thing they should have said is, "Yeah, we understand that it is a tragedy. Guess what? It's not going to happen. It'll happen again and again and again as long as terrorists keep using their children as human shields. We're not going to let them frickin' use their women and children as human shields. If we find out where they're at, we're going to wipe them out." Next question.
No,
and that's how it should have went.
I agree. The people that are actually using them as families and are in the same buildings and are using them as you said, meat shields, for instance, or shields in general. Yes, I have no problem with the army itself doing that, or any sort of form of military might doing that. I have no problem whatsoever with people doing that. As I said before, if somebody shoots at you, you have every right to shoot back regardless. The problem that I have is our troops, or your troops, for instance, taking the initiative to begin with. That's the only issue that I have. Now, if you're going after a specific target and it's a drone strike or a bombing strike, sorry, sometimes casualties get in the way. I'm with you. I'm completely and utterly with you. You can't, under a sort of an issue or a mission like that, you can't have every you can't have every sort of form of what could happen put it into your mind. There might be a child that runs across from the other room. I'm sorry, it just happens sometimes. I'm with you. I'm completely with you on that. I just have the issue of, if they're not a part of that and they're not even in the same building, I don't see why we can go after the other side of things. That's all.
Well, you don't always know where these children are, number one.
Yes, true.
And if you try to target an area because you're trying to put blanket fire in an area, you're going to end up with those kind of deaths. Let's take a look at an example right now that's going on currently with Hamas in Israel, right, in the Gaza Strip. They're launching rockets. In where are they launching the rockets from? All these residential districts, right? And the reason they're doing that is because they're using those people in those residential districts as frickin' human shields. They're building the bombs in those areas. They're using them as human shields because they know that as soon as Israel goes in there seriously and starts to take out those people, like they have, right? Oh, there's 69 dead. Oh my God, look at this. Instead of sitting up there and people like, and then this all started with Corbyn. I'm going to try and bring it back to him again. People like Corbyn are right there to sit up there and quote unquote decry the military action. And there's really, look, it's not something you want to do. It's not something, but it turns into something you have to do. And it comes down to, look, lead, follow, or get out of the freaking way. If you don't have a freaking solution for it, let us finish the job. Then you can, kibitz and carp about how we did it, and you could sit up there and then explain how it could be done better. All right, but if you don't have another solution for this, if you don't have a better way of doing something like this, shut the hell up at least. I'm not saying that you have to shut up. I'm not saying you don't have the right to speak. I'm just saying you shouldn't, because you're a freaking asshole.
No, I agree. I mean, one of the things that I really hate with the idea of Palestine and Israel conflict at this moment in time is the fact that, okay, yeah, Israel have done some questionable things, but at that point in time, it is to defend their border and to defend their fences. Remembering that when everybody was saying that they were protesting to try and get into Israel again, at that point in time, Hamas was saying that if they got in, they were going to kill every Jew that they could find. They weren't just trying to storm the fences. They were throwing rocks at the sentry. They were throwing whatever they could, slingshots and everything else like that. Yes, okay, it's not a case, it's not going to seriously hurt somebody that's in armor. But fuck me, it's still got a chance of hurting you, and it's a bit scary when rocks are flying at your fucking head. Remember, these people are human. But they don't report on that side of things, but they report on when they retaliate. And I just wonder, why doesn't the media itself, I mean, I know why, but it's a question in itself, but why doesn't the media themselves report when Palestine are throwing rockets and sending rockets from the Gaza Strip back into Israel to kill children that are near fucking schools? Why doesn't that get reported in the mainstream media?
Right. Why is it the fact that they're targeting the schools not get reported? Because
Exactly.
that's what they're doing. They're not targeting military bases. All right. They're not targeting, the hard assets of a country. All right. You're not targeting the police. They're targeting the civilians. Now, you could come back and say, if you're going to look at it from their point of view, you could come back and say, well, the reason we're doing that is because they're the support element for those troops. Which, okay, if you want to have, if that's the war you want to have, then as far as I'm concerned, the Israelis should just start shelling the freaking the Gaza Strip until there's not a rocket fired ever again.
To be fair, as long as the Israelis said to the Gaza Strip themselves, get your women and children out before, say, I don't know, 10 o'clock tonight, and after that time, at 10:01, we're going to shell the Gaza Strip, so anybody that is in there is going to get disintegrated. I would have no problem with them doing that. As long as they give them the chance to get women and children out of the way, or people that are not involved to get out of the way, no problem whatsoever. Go and bum the shit out of them, because they deserve it.
I don't think that. I think that for you to say that they're not involved is somewhat of a misnomer. Now, I don't disagree necessarily that you can give them that chance, but you need to. I would do it once, and if you give them that chance once, and then they abuse it, they abuse that situation, I would never give them that chance again.
Sure.
All right.
No, I agree.
And the rest of the Arab world will get upset, yes, but to be honest, the rest of the Arab world, they don't like the Palestinians either. And there's several reasons for it, right? Not the least of which is every time the Palestinians, all they do is cause problems wherever they go. Even when the vast majority of the Palestinians were kicked out of Israel during the creation of the Israeli state, and a lot of them fled across the border into Jordan.
Yeah.
All right. What did they do in Jordan? Now, Jordan is trying to take care of them. Jordan has set up, what they call refugee camps, which are basically just cities. Yep. And they're for all intents and purposes, they're full of amenities, right? Now, Jordan, unlike many of the other countries, doesn't have huge stores of oil reserves. So the fact that they even set these things up is already a massive drain on Jordan. Sure. All right, on Jordan proper. And how did the Palestinians respond? They responded by trying to create a coup and kill King Hussein.
Yep, they did.
All right, and it's like, okay, and for those who don't understand, this is Black September, in case you're wondering how to look it up. All right, this is one of the reasons why the Palestinians, the Arabs will use it like a bloody rag, saying, look at the poor Palestinians, but they don't like the Palestinians any more than anybody else. And in fact, Kuwait, they kicked every freaking Palestinian that was still in Kuwait out.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
All right, and they replaced them with Indians and Pakistanis, actually.
Yes,
because
they did.
Kuwaiti nationals are, if you are a true Kuwaiti national, all right, you get an at your lowest level. They have tiered levels depending upon how close you are to the monarch, right? Of Kuwait. But if you're considered a citizen of Kuwait, the minimum you receive each year from the state is $50,000. That's the minimum each year that you receive from the state, and that's if you're one of the low-level people. As you go up closer to the monarch, right, the more money is allocated to you.
Of course.
That's the kind of state that you're dealing with.
Yeah, fuck that.
All right,
that's
so
money orientated.
So the Kuwaitis themselves, live high on the hog, and they use all the other the Palestinians. What they were using the Palestinians for basically were their servants. Look, this is my servant, and they treated them pretty freaking horribly, right? If you want to be frank about it, they treated them close to slaves, not quite quite slaves. I mean, they could leave, right? But they didn't treat them as one of the family or anything. For the most part, they treated them like dirt.
No, and the thing is, it was all condoned and accepted because of a book.
Well, it is how they live. Now they're strange people. Okay, you will. When I was there, we were driving through an area through Kuwait one night, and there's this area that's just off in the desert, right? And a bunch of tents were being put up, right? And we're like, "What's that?" And the guy goes, "Well, those are the Kuwaitis." And I said, well, "Why are they building? Are they going to have a festival? You know, is there a festival going on? What's going on?" And he's like, "No. This is their back to the desert movement. See, for like a week or 2 weeks out of the year, they have to get back to their Bedouin roots. So they set up these tents in the desert, and they live in these tents for a couple weeks.
Good for them.
Of course, they bring in air conditioning and portable generators and everything else.
So in other words, a fucking waste of time.
All right. But they're getting back to their Bedouin roots because they're living.
Of course. It's like a native Indian going, I'm going to build a wigwam, but I'm just going to bring in all my heating, and I'm going to bring in that flat screen telly, and exactly. It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
They have lights going on. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, well, that's just kind of interesting.
Jesus, that's just ridiculous. I'm going to get back to my roots because God told me to. Yeah, I'm going to take this air conditioning with me. Fuck you.
Look, it's in the Korean summer. AC is good. See right there. It says cool waters. He's talking about AC.
Yeah, the anchors will guide us. The anchors will guide us. The AC is an anchor, isn't it? Look, if I put it on here and it doesn't move the tent, it's an anchor, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of their culture. Well, I am, but no, the Kuwaitis, you know, the Arabic culture is different than ours. They don't think like we do, and the expectations that somehow at some point in time they're ever going to think like us, right, is a dangerous philosophy because they never will.
No, I agree.
They literally have nothing in common with us.
No, I agree. I agree with that in part. I mean, if people were to emigrate in small numbers and were to go into westernized cities and were 2-3 generations down the road, I would say that they would probably integrate and would change. But if you're saying that people from the Middle East would never change, no, they're definitely not. If they stay in the Middle East, they're definitely never going to change. Their culture's been around for thousands upon thousands of years and hasn't fucking evolved anything. There's been no westernized style democracies. There's been no westernized style human rights. There's been nothing to make them better than what any other places. It's the same thing from sub-Saharan Africa, though.
Well, it is to a large extent, but in a similar sense, this was what Japan was like, right? Prior to World War II, people don't realize this.
Yes,
Japan itself modernized itself from 1863 on, right? It went on a crash industrialization, right? And you got to remember, they went from in 1863 being a culture that basically subsisted, just barely had gunpowder, right? But for the most part, they ran around with bows and arrows and swords, right? Yep. That was their culture as a whole.
Yeah, they were still practicing samurais even in the First World War. It took Americans and English to teach them actually how to shoot, and that was after the First World War, if I remember.
Right, because there was, during the Bushido tradition at that point, it was still considered, you know, dishonorable to use a distance weapon, right? To use a weapon that bows and arrows were more of a toy or a thing of etiquette than it was an actual weapon of war. Now, did you have archers in their wars that they used? Yes, but
they weren't Bushido. They weren't samurai.
They were looked down upon.
Yeah, right? They weren't Bushido. They weren't samurai. Right. They were militia, basically.
The swordsmen, like I said, the samurai may learn the bow, but he wouldn't use the bow in conflict. All right, and Japan went in 1863. From basically a pre-industrial society to a modern state in 1903, all right, industrialized. state in 1903. And in 1903, they have 1902, 1903, they have a war with Russia, where they beat Russia in a naval war. All right, with naval ships. Now, this is you can't understate how much of a difference that how much of a change that was. But it was a change from the materials that they had. It wasn't a change in their culture. They didn't change internally. They still had a lot of the philosophical beliefs that they had before. Yeah. They would overlay certain aspects of democracy, and technically they had elections, but in reality the culture itself was still very feudalistic and worked that way, and that's how people got along, and that's how people understood things. It wasn't until World War II was over that they started to shed some of that backwards way of looking at life as a whole. And I get into arguments all the time with people about some of this aspects, because it's this aspect that prevented them during World War II, during the entire conflict that they had. All right, this is their conflict in China, their conflict against the British, the conflicts against the Americans.
But they didn't really have too many conflicts in China. It was more a case of occupation.
Well, that's true. I mean, but I'm just. I mean, they were occupying areas when they were fighting some of the forces, of Mao and Chiang Kai-shek at times, right? But during all that time frame, not one Japanese unit ever surrendered.
No. To the point where they're still finding people in the Vietnam forest and Cambodian forest that still think the war's going on.
Right. They did have that. I mean, I think the latest one, they found a guy in 1973. I think it was 73, 74. A Japanese soldier in the Philippines.
Yes.
Where he had not surrendered, and it took them to find one of his commanders that was still alive. Now you got to remember, 1970, 73, 74. You're talking close to 35 years later.
Yeah, fucking hell.
All right, a lot of these guys were already, gone for a long period of time. They had to find this guy's commander and put him on a bullhorn to convince him to come out and surrender. All right, Jesus. They weren't going to kill him or hurt him or anything, but he had been living, stealing food, and so forth, worried about being captured by the Americans, on an individual level. And yes, there were some individual Japanese that became prisoners of war. Generally, when that happened, however, the Japanese was captured after they were knocked unconscious.
Yes. They generally wouldn't give themselves up. And even if they had a chance or were in a prisoner of war camp, generally they would commit harikari as well. But they generally didn't stay around.
Right. And so, but that mindset is not a mindset Americans... Well, you can identify and say, yeah, that's a mindset. That doesn't mean we understand that philosophy.
Yeah.
All right. It means that we recognize it exists, and you have a similar type of mentality. All right, with the Arabs, the life is unimportant to them. All right, human life especially. Their own life may be important to him specifically. And
even that's questionable, though, because if they're a devout follower of Islam, so to speak, then they believe in the hereafter, and if they certainly believe in the idea of the Quran and the seven heavens and everything else like that, then they would be fighting a holy war, so they would be happy to die anyway. Hence why people blow themselves up.
That's true too. That's true as well. But the other aspect of it that makes it a little bit different than dealing with the Japanese is the Japanese owed loyalty and fidelity to the emperor. So when the emperor ordered them, saying, "We are laying down our arms, we are surrendering," they had to accept that. Okay, you can't do that in the Arab cultures because each little group has its own quote unquote tribal leader. All right, it has their own little village leader or elder. All right, who is actually the more important part of their little group. This is why it's very difficult when I use the term Arabs to describe the overall cultural aspect, but it isn't as unified, all right, in that regard. And this is why when I talk about these harsh tactics and these harsh methodologies, right, is if you wipe out a frickin' village and the other villagers see that, they're like, okay, they're willing to wipe out villages. Mine could be next. Okay, yeah, I'm going to agree with that. If you go in there and you leave and you just pinpoint here and there and you try to be nice and everything else, they just look at that as weakness. They just look at that as okay, you're not willing to do what's necessary. You're not harsh enough you're not Bedouin enough. You're not living up to the standard of the desert that the desert calls for.
I absolutely have to agree with that. I mean, I agree with the tactic that if it's a village that is solely with people that are known to be, I don't know, a terrorist organization and they have their families there, I still say bomb it. But if they're just got people in the village themselves and you have normal villagers around, I'm a bit iffy on that. I can understand why you would, but I'm iffy on it, and that's probably because I've never been in a war situation or had to deal with that aspect.
Well, okay. People forget that the United States, I mean, one of the things people like Rat was calling us, the United States, imperialistic, which I absolutely reject. But you could you can look at certain aspects of U.S. history that people forget about. People don't really, one thing that's not studied in the United States, right, that we studied in the military simply because it's part of military history, is our operations in the Philippines after the Spanish-American War. Okay, and this was a fight against an insurgency campaign, and it was flat out bloody and terrifying. All right, it isn't something that you go into and you can't walk into with the idea of, okay, everything is just fine and dandy. We'll just leave the women and children alone and everything else. No, it turned bloody at certain points where they had to wipe out a couple of villages before that area settled down. Consequently, it's also the area that's dealing with the Muslims. What a surprise! But right, I mean, but we've gone through campaigns like that, and we have been successful. It isn't nice. It isn't sweet. It's bloody and it's ruthless. And sometimes you've got to accept the fact that you've got to get bloody and ruthless in order to sit up there and stop what's going on. Because when you hand a 12th century mentality, modern weaponry, massacres happen.
Yeah. Sure. No, I absolutely have to agree with you on that point. I mean, sometimes it is a case that you have to do stuff like that. I'm never, ever going to dispute that. Just from my own moralistic point, I can't understand the killing of what I would call innocents. Now, in the idea of a war and in the heat of battle, so to speak, they're not innocents because they're accomplices. I do understand, and even to the point of as bad as it is collateral damage, I understand those points. It's just from my own moralistic point, I suppose. I'm looking at it from somebody that's never been in war, that hasn't really learned the tactics of war and things like that. It's just a layman, so to speak, making a moralistic ideology or ideals.
Well, it comes down to, look, the populace sends us into these places. Then get the hell out of the way and let us do it the right way. That's my biggest bitch. You don't do what we did in Iraq, all right, and then walk away. You don't just abandon the things. You go in there, you do it right, and you go in as hard as you possibly can. People talk about, oh, it was shock and awe. Do you really think that we brought in the full force of the United States into Iraq? No,
not at all.
It wasn't even close. It was with pinpoint strikes and everything else. Once again, and then you had generals that were painting big red circles around mosque areas, saying you can't fire even if you're fired upon in these areas unless you get approval from higher headquarters.
Yeah.
Right. And this is nonsensical. This isn't going in there for shock and awe. This isn't going in there to dominate and win the frickin' battle. And it's one of the things that even today that it just grates on me. And I can't tell you, it just grates on me. It grates on me a lot.
No, I do actually understand where you're coming from. I do understand the tactics. It's just, as I said, my moralistic ideas or my idealistic morals just wouldn't allow me to do the innocence. Now, as I said before, I could myself be able to do the shooting of a child if they're coming towards me with a bomb. In fact, I could probably stab them, even though it is more personal. So I do understand not that it would actually help me in that situation if they're running with me at a bomb and I go and stab them. I'm just saying I probably could. I could do that, as in it wouldn't bother me at all. Because at that point you're defending your life, so I can understand that. And I can understand your points of where you're saying that, well, if you have that on a daily basis for 6 months, then at that point in time when you see a child, you can see the same thing as you would for a Taliban. So, or whatever. So I can understand your points on that. It's just, I don't know. For me, on a moralistic point of view, I couldn't do it, but that's the reason why I'm not in the fucking army. And that's the reason why I wouldn't be fucking leading an army in its shape or form. And hence why I shouldn't be telling other people in armies what to do. Because I've got no fucking say in it. Hello, memes of destruction, sir.
What's going on? And MCs, stop with the killing of children. We've had this discussion before.
And what solution
I
did you
love
have,
you all.
memes? What was your solution, memes? Your solution is love, right?
You do realise that that's illegal in westernized countries. You do realise that's illegal in Western countries, don't you, to love children?
So let's drop another truth bomb, if you will, here. As CSG basically came out and said that he essentially is kind of identifying as an SJW in some ways as well.
Fuck you.
No, I love you too, but no, on a lot of these things, man, it's like MC is a military dude.
Yeah.
The military's job is to do military things. And to try to put their hands behind their back doesn't make any sense. That's why I say we should try to avoid war at all possible. But if it does come to that, I mean, if you're going to unleash the full force and might of the U.S. military, you do it. You don't pussyfoot around. You do it right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where a lot of MC likes to beat me up saying, oh, it means you don't want to do anything like that. It's like, I get it. I just try to avoid doing that. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're coming from the same points on that one. Well, at least me and memes are.
Whoa, dude! I think I've gotten some sun and stuff. This white T-shirt makes me look like, woo! I feel like healthy now.
How is Disneyland?
You feel healthy. You look kind of pasty, to be honest.
Hey! I identify with that, with my Irish blood. But as Ali said from Family Guy, it's gonna rain. I mean, it is raining.
How'd you like my rant on moderates?
I got about 6 or 7 minutes in, and then I'm like, I've heard this discussion many times before. It's all right, and well, here's the thing. I think we need a better definition of what a moderate is.
What is a moderate?
These are good questions. I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't even thinking of you when I sit up there and went in that rant. There was two other people.
That hurts a little, MC. I like to believe at least a little part of me was in the back of your brain as you were screaming your lungs out.
Oops.
Thanks, man. I think I did. You came to mind later on during the rant, but
all right, I'll have to finish it off. I'm like halfway through it, so I know it's a long video, but you got to take care of the missus, and she's changing. She's putting on a nice dress as we go to the Crystal Palace for dinner this evening.
And you're wearing a white T-shirt. Make a fucking effort.
Hey, she liked this T-shirt. She suggested it. It was $5, and it was well worth it.
A $5 T-shirt, huh? Was that for the pack?
You know what? Maybe I'll wear my lobster shirt.
See, that's better. At least that's a bit of an effort. You can tell he's a fucking communist, can't you? By the fact that, yeah, my missus is putting on a lovely dress, and I'm going to go in a T-shirt and jeans. $5, by the way.
She is an excellent shopper. You can say whatever you want about me, but don't you hate on Mrs. Memes here.
I would never hate on Mrs. Memes.
You've got the right attitude as far as taking care of family first. I have no problems with that.
Definitely, she wouldn't always agree.
Well, she may disagree that you're not taking care of her as much as she may want. I mean, that's just the difference between men and women, dude.
Yeah, I can vouch for that with my missus.
Okay. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better about this now. Thank you.
Right, why we've still got other people in on the chat at this moment in time, and why we've still got some people watching. I'm going to shoot the link into the side chat again. Anybody else that wants to come in and talk about anything else, because person I'm supposed to be doing a live stream with is still not here. So anybody else who wants to come in and talk about anything, please do. And the two guests that are obviously already here. Is there any questions that you have for me personally, or do you want to move on to a different topic?
What topic do you have?
Any topic. It doesn't matter. Pick anything that you want. It's an open stream.
Okay, hold on a second, because I have something for you. Well, not but for the audience here. Let me look it up here real quick.
Oh, that sounds ominous. I hate it when people
bringing that up. CSG, I must ask you the third question.
Oh dear.
What is the airspeed and velocity of an unladen swallow?
African and European.
God damn it, MC! You're not supposed to jump in.
See, I didn't know that there was a European swallow because I presumed that the African swallows actually emigrated all the way up, and that's the reason why we called them European.
Well, I mean, how else did coconuts get here?
The coconuts generally don't. Well, I suppose they are around France and Spain and the Mediterranean.
I'm sorry for breaking the stream again.
No, it's fine. You never broke the stream. It was just interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've heard of the Asian swallow, but I never thought that was. I thought it was a subspecies, obviously, of the African swallow. I thought the African swallow was the ones that migrated everywhere.
Oh, I have no idea. That's just what the gatekeeper and the Holy Grail says.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a Monty Python skit, what he's referring to.
See, I'm not as old as you two. I mean, I look older than you two, but I'm not.
No, you don't look older than me. Trust me. I got plenty of white hair.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
I got plenty of gray. Okay, what I put in the side chat, if you want to look at it, is is something that's really. This is actually what set off my rant. Right.
Oh, do I want? I'm not sure if I want to rant on a stream. I mean,
no. This is one of the Sticks videos you had a problem with because he's like, yeah, we shouldn't spray pesticides.
No. I went off on this because of what the Ninth Circuit did. The Ninth Circuit went out of its way to order an administration, all right, to do its job the way they see fit, not how the EPA sees fit. They literally sent an order and said, "You will ban this pesticide."
They were legislating from the bench.
Exactly, and that's what set the rant off. And this is a major issue, all right? When you've got a Justice Department that is basically telling the administration what they can do, how they can do it, and where they should do it, that is no longer judging whether or not something's legal or illegal, whether or not a decision is part of the legislative branch or not. This is them dictating, all right, from the bench. This is a dangerous frickin' precedent, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse. They went out of their way to sit up there and tell the EPA, no, your decision isn't correct. We're going to substitute our decision. Even though you were created to have the scientific expertise, we don't care. We're going to tell you, all right, what you're supposed to do. We're the ones who are going to call in the experts to say this. And the reason I brought this up for a common sense guy, right, wasn't so I could rehash that part of the issue, actually, but it was more to ask, how is this the kind of stuff that happens from your benches or not? Is this something you often see?
To some extent, yeah. The way that it would work for us, for instance, would be, I don't know, we had some instances of Black Lives Matter, for the UK version, coming through. And people like our David Lammy took up the cause of being able to speak for them in the House of Congress. House of Congress, the fucking Houses of Parliament. Fuck's sake.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Well, CSG, isn't there also the case of the whole context doesn't matter with Count Dankula?
That's Scotland.
Oh, isn't that the UK?
Yeah, but Scotland runs on a sheriff-style court system. Their court system is completely different to our court systems.
Why is it even half a millennia later? It's always the Sheriff of Nottingham that ruins everything. All right, guys. The mist is out of the shower. I'm going to get some aggro. I got to go.
Oh, wait. Just a second. Wait just a second. It's not the Sheriff of Nottingham on this occasion. It's the Sheriff of Edinburgh.
Oh, I stand corrected. Down with the Sheriff of Nottingham. I mean, he's an excellent chap, I'm sure. I know nothing about him. All right, you guys peace out.
Long live the king.
But no,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to. No, it's all right. I was going to say David Lemmy then put the instance to our Parliament, and then it was a case of our Parliament started putting appeals in. Well, our Labour were putting appeals into amendments and trying to pass laws, and because a lot of people didn't turn up for it on certain occasions, that certain laws were passed and things like that. So yeah, no, it definitely happens. I mean, it happens a bit differently to the way that this happened. This seems that it was generally an outside interference that basically took it upon itself to, personally, by the looks of it, from what I've read so far, literally go against the Trump administration for not following the law in their eyes, and literally forcing an issue to do with Trump rather than it actually being an issue. It seems to be more about Trump than what the court's already decided.
Well, right, and this is why it's dangerous. When I talked about, and too bad memes isn't here. When I talk about moderate, right, it's the moderates that have allowed these guys to get a foothold, right? That have been ignoring this kind of thing. Now, there are other instances, and one of which, of course, is the Roe v. Wade, right? Roe v. Wade was decided by the courts, and it was decided. It has literally a great overstep, saying, okay, we're going to grant rights that aren't even part of the Constitution. In fact, what they did is they granted a right to privacy that didn't exist, right? On the, I think it was the 13th or 14th Amendment, 14th Amendment, I believe. All right, and then they read in a right to privacy in the 14th Amendment, and then to addition to that, said, okay, now we're going to read in the right of abortion as part of the right to privacy that we just created, all right, in our rule.
Yeah, but there is no amendment for abortion.
There is not an amendment for abortion, and what was happening throughout the country, of course, was in some states they were modifying it, in other states it was illegal. Okay, this is how all of this came to the fore, right?
Sure.
So you have an absolutely heinous ruling that is basically legislation from the bench, okay, making these kind of a decision, and it just starts to creep further and further and further. And this is another example. I mean, I could go in throughout from a historical example. Since the 1960s, they've been making these kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
And the reason that people like memes, all right, why I blame people like the moderates, all right, about this is because what they're basically doing is they're pulling planks out from the very structure of the country, all right, in order to get a decision that they like without even realizing how dangerous it is when you keep pulling, boards away from the very structure of the foundation of the country and the foundations of the government.
So you're basically saying that they're playing Jenga?
In a sense, yeah. All right, in an effort to get what they want. And when you point this out, and it wasn't memes that I pointed this out to. I was arguing about the ridiculous ruling that the courts got involved with gay marriage, right? When I pointed out that this is harming the structure, they said, "Well, I agree with the decision, so we won." You're not listening, all right?
Yeah. You're
looking at a small-term gain. If you wanted to win, if a state wanted to legalize quote unquote homosexual or gay marriage, and you wanted to go state by state and legalize the marriage, fine.
Yep.
All right. Most likely you were going to get the vast majority of the states to agree, if not all of them eventually anyway, to some extent. Now, some would call it like civil unions. They wouldn't necessarily call it marriage or whatever. All right. But by having the courts do it, you're having the courts engage in judicial activism. They're legislating from the bench. You can't have this. The justices are not accountable to the people. All right. They are put there and they are appointed there. All right. In many cases with the federal courts, they're appointed there for life. And now you can't get rid of them. You can't argue with them. They are not representative of the people at all. If you got a decision, it's the same argument that I have with Mad Dog when it comes to marijuana. Look, you can argue about marijuana being legal or not legal. all right, in reality in the United States, federally, it's illegal. So throughout the United States, regardless of whether or not the federal government actually takes action on any specific time or not doesn't make it legal. Now I have less of an argument when it comes to what Mad Dodge is doing, because at least they're not going through the judicial process. They are going through the legislative process, although it's state by state. All right. So, he's in a certain way, they're going about it the right way. Although the problem is that granting the federal government that kind of power in the first place, they never should have allowed that.
Oh, no, right? I definitely agree with your premise. I mean, I'll use a quick analogy. We can use yourselves as an analogy for what you're suggesting, as in the courts being the leaders, so to speak, and write legislation. That's the same for the European Court of Justice. For the same thing for our European Congress, so to speak, our superstate of the European Union, because they're the ones that are dictating to us what we can and cannot do. And the highest court it's in the land now comes to be the European Courts of Justice, which means that our national courts always are abiding and completely adherent to whatever the European Courts of Justice decide.
Yeah,
that means we have no sovereignty at all.
Well, you have within the United States, there is the issue of sovereignty, which is why Man of Dodge and I are going on the whole Civil War thing and what the changes were to that. But yeah, because there's limits to the federal sovereignty, all right, but there's limits to state sovereignty as well. All right, that's what makes our form of government very difficult for some people to understand, right? Because there's checks and balances in many different areas. One of the checks on the federal government as a whole are the state governments, all right? Because the state governments literally, all right, can get together and overthrow any decision if it wanted to. If you got enough states together and overthrow any decision by the federal government, in fact, they could rewrite what the federal government could do, right? Now, if we ever get a convention of states, people would see that. Now, people fear a convention of states because in a convention of states, the states themselves could throw out the entire constitution and turn us into a monarchy, all right, theoretically, all right?
Nobody wants a monarchy. I can tell you from England, nobody wants a monarchy.
All right, I'm just using that as a possibility. The likelihood of that happening is not really great, but people do have a lot of fear, especially for losing certain other rights. Like, let's rewrite the Second Amendment then. Okay?
No, that's not.
No,
that's not
exactly.
Right,
and that's why that's what people are concerned about. That's what the kind of things. One of the dangers of quote unquote convention of states is that it would realign. It would change the very foundational structure of the government. Although it would still leave the Constitution, it's a constitutional method. It would still leave that constitutional law intact, right? Unless they said, you know what, we're throwing the Constitution out. We're rewriting the entire document. They theoretically could do that, right? But but nobody would expect that. Nobody expects that necessarily to happen. At least I don't expect that to happen going forward.
No,
but there are processes to do this, and the processes are very important to the foundational structure of the country. And if you throw away the foundational structures that we have within the United States, and they're different than Europe, right? They're different than the parliamentary system.
I was only using it as an analogy, so for some people could understand it.
No, I agree. I wasn't disagreeing with you in any way.
No. I mean, as soon as you yourself, for anybody from the United Kingdom, basically what MC is saying is basically any sort of form of Lord Chief Justice or QC or any sort of judge would be able to, in this case, dictate what policy would have to be enforced on the government, rather than the government and the people deciding what the policy should be.
Right, and right now they're so brazen, especially in the Ninth Circuit. They're basically challenging anything and everything coming from the Trump administration, and they're challenging them not on the grounds of the law. They're just flat out saying, we don't like your decision, so therefore we're gonna make up the law as it goes. They're doing it with foreign policy. They're doing it with internal immigration. They're doing it on with the EPA, where they're telling the EPA now what it can and can't do, and how it will do its job, and whatever their experts say doesn't matter to them because they're the arbitrator of how the job is supposed to be done.
Yeah,
stuff is freaking.
I'm going to quickly read a quick extract so people can actually understand what this actually was. These are all in quotations, and this is actually from the decision making, or for the idea of the decision. So this shows that the EPA can't just ignore the science that this pesticide damages children's brains. Now, quick point on this. As MC's already said, there was already a decision on this with their own version of scientists that come forward, their own versions of situations and events that was already done and sentenced and already sorted, that the complete reverse of this. So this is just on an ideology, just for anybody that's actually listening, and here's the reason why. Marissa O'Donnell, a lawyer for Earth Justice, which represented the petitioners, said in an interview that this is important, obviously, and the main reasons and the main point of ideology that MC's talking about. The Trump administration has to follow the law as everyone else does. So it's not about the ruling, it's about the fact that Trump himself decided not himself, sorry. The perceived idea that Trump administration is going against human rights and everything else like this. This is an attack on the administration or Trump's administration, not the actual idea of helping people.
Right. It's just one example of many examples, and it goes back to one of the decisions that, and I've said this, I don't know if I said it to you, but I have said it on live streams before. One of the worst decisions that was ever done, right, was the Miranda case. All right, and the Miranda case goes back, a long ways in our justice system. It's what causes the police to say, we're going to read you your rights.
Mm.
And my argument is this, right? At that point right there, you turned our justice system, all right, from ignorance of the law is not an excuse to ignorance of the law of the land is an excuse. You can, as long as you're ignorant of the law of the land, well, then you can have an excuse for anything that you do. And the law of the land, meaning the Constitution of the United States. We have to read you your rights under the Constitution. Shouldn't you know your rights under the Constitution? Why is it that the justices felt it was mandatory to force a law enforcement official to educate the individual as to what their rights are?
Well, sorry, I did want to jump in. Some people take their freedom for granted, and a lot of people shouldn't and should learn what rights they actually have. But unfortunately, a side effect of a free society is the fact of thinking that the state's never going to go against you. Anybody that knows anything about governments and themselves, regardless of how free you think the government is and allows you to be, is always going to look out for themselves and not for the people. So,
okay, but in this specific case, this was a horrible ruling because
I agree.
It's easy enough for people to say, you know what, we don't like the fact that the police aren't informing people of their rights. We're going to sit up there and make it a requirement that police, when they arrest somebody, has to read them their rights. All right. They could do that from a legislative standpoint, and I wouldn't have a problem. I do have a problem with it when the court says this is the remedy because this is what I want you to be doing. That's legislation from the bench. I realize it seems like I'm dancing on the head of a pin here. Tomato, tomato. But these are very important concepts that needed to be addressed. And once we started that major slide after the Miranda ruling, things have only gotten worse and worse and worse. And what's the result is, even from a social standpoint, a societal standpoint, is ever since that ruling, Americans' involvement into the legislative process, all right, where they're interested in who's being elected and who they're voting and who their representatives are and holding their Congress people accountable and their representatives accountable, whether it be in the state, whether it be in the county, or whether it be in Congress of the United States, has been getting worse and worse and worse because they're preferring to run to the courts to fix this rather than use their representatives to fix this.
Yeah, which is completely the wrong process of doing, as I said, as an analogy. It's the same thing as the government saying, right, you have the freedom to be able to say whatever you want to anybody, and then the court coming up next to it as somebody's appealed it, going, you're now not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to say this. So the government said one thing, and then the courts themselves have decided completely separately and autonomously that it is now illegal for you to do this. Is that about correct?
No, that is correct. If you heard that's I have to drop off and take this phone call. So I
Sure.
appreciate you having me on. I apologize for jumping off so quickly. I stayed on here a little bit longer than I probably should have. So, but thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much, my friend. Cheers. Cheers for coming on.
Yeah. Later.
No worries, mate. Right then, Mr. Aaron Telford. We're not talking about American politics now. So if you want to come on, or if anybody else wants to come on, please do. It'd be very, very interesting to hear what anybody else has got to say. We do have around about 20 minutes-ish left. But if nobody else wants to come on, I might end a little bit early. But I'm quite interested to see who wants to come on and what they want to talk about, or just in general, if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask. I'm quite interested to see if anybody wants to ask me anything or ask me a particular scenario or anything else like that. So if anybody wants to come on, please do. There is an open mic. So please come on and have a look and have a listen. Decide if anybody wants to come on. Please don't leave me on my own. I'm not good on my own. I tend to ramble quite a bit. And to be honest, I actually got rid of all of my stories. So if nobody really comes on in the next, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes, I'm probably actually going to end the stream, to be fair. Simply because I just can't be asked to think up of stuff to actually talk about. You do need to buy a microphone, Mr. Matt Barkley. It would be very, very interesting to have you on. Yeah, okay, yeah, I agree that smoking and beer definitely would come first. Well, beer definitely for me. I gave up smoking 4 years ago. So yeah. That's very, very unlucky, Mr. Lothar Sheffield. I'm very, very sorry to hear that. I don't know why she would hide them why she left. That kind of seems very vindictive. No offense, no offense given though, but that kind of seems a little bit of vindictive for her. Yeah, okay. Well, is anybody else interested in coming on at all? It'd be very interesting to see if anybody's got anything at all to talk about. I mean, we can even talk about conspiracy theories if people really wanted to, or anything that they want to talk about at all. So, Mad Dodge, if you wanted to come on and talk about if or not, as I think, the fact that Bigfoot exists, then please do for a couple of minutes. That'd be very, very interesting. Or I don't know if he's still here, but Flatball, if you want to come in and talk about the flat Earth, then I'd be interested in that. I'm just interested in filling a bit of time, so I'm quite interested in that. I'm going to keep on suggesting it. But another 2 minutes, and then if nobody comes on, then I'm going to get off. Because me can't hold the fort down by myself, unfortunately. So this is the point where I actually start running out of things to say, unfortunately.
Well, there you go. I'm here to save you.
Mad Dodge, no!
No, I don't even want to talk about politics. I have
I'll talk about anything.
there, and all I ever see on there is reruns of Star Trek. So I figure you know a lot about Star Trek. Have you heard about Have you heard about the new Picard series? They're bringing back Patrick Stewart. Yeah, and they're going to do a series about it. Have you heard about this?
I've heard it from the actor that he's going through and going to do it again. The only reason why I follow him is because he wants the people's vote, and I completely and utterly dislike that. So yeah, please tell me a little bit about the fact that he's going back to do versions of Jean-Luc Picard.
Well, yeah, the thing is, there's no real details out other than what he said at the announcement. And what he said is, this is Picard 20 years after Nemesis. Oh. And right now, you know, as he put it, is like, right now, I am 20 years older than when we filmed Nemesis. It's perfect. But they didn't say an idea for the plot. Now, I have an idea for a plot. I think Picard should have PTSD. I think it should be more of a character piece and about Picard dealing with this in his older age. And maybe you have cameos from other Star Trek people to come on and kind of help, flush the show out.
Yeah, like Tora.
Deanna Troi, or not Deanna Troi, but Beverly Crusher shows up, to help treat him and stuff. But he would have this PTSD because of the events at Wolf 359, the Borg, and all that stuff being assimilated. Yeah, it would make sense, and it could be a real good, psychiatrical thriller type thing, almost like the episode they did with Riker, where he was wigging out doing a play. I don't know if you remember that episode.
I do, yeah.
But I think this. Yeah, what do you think? Is that a good idea? I'm not going to pitch it to him or anything, but I think that would be a good way to use Picard.
I think it would be interesting. I mean, especially for somebody that's what is he now? Is he coming up to 70? Isn't he, Picard? Is he coming up to 70? I know he's quite an older gentleman now. I think it would be a very interesting way of being able to, as you quite rightly said, use the idea of PTSD, but I think it'd be a good idea to also put in the idea of Alzheimer's into it as well, because you can still have PTSD with Alzheimer's, because obviously you have the post-traumatic stress that gives you the memories of the stress, but actually it can enforce the fact of losing memories quicker. So you can lose the memories of the people that you were with as you see them. So it could be an idea of everybody Picard actually pulling away from everybody and becoming into an isolation, as you said before. You can have people like Riker and a couple of others, Wolf and everybody else, coming in and trying to show him care. And it would be an idea for being able to put into the idea of how, when people get to a certain age and after they have certain problems, how everybody leaves them and only the people that are paid to look after them seem to care about them. As in the old care homes, the old adjectives and everything else like that. And the fact of going in and talking to other space captains, and maybe Star Trek Voyager or Deep Space Nine can have a cameo every now and again, or whatever. But I think the idea of a psychological plot with the idea of PTSD and a little bit of Alzheimer's as well, I think you're onto a winner there, mate.
Yeah, that'd be, because, I mean, let's be real. What else are they going to do with Picard? They're not going to have him running around the fucking... Even in character, he's 91 years old. I don't care how good Starfleet medicine is. Give me a break.
Yeah, let's leave the commie medicine out of this. Let's leave the commie medicine out of this. I don't care even if it's called a federation, it's still communism.
You know what sucks, though, is Quentin Tarantino wants to direct a Star Trek movie, not a show. Because my idea for this Picard show would be Quentin Tarantino all over it. Come on, you have flashbacks back to, when the Borg assimilated him and all sorts of weird, psychological fucking shit. It would be really intense and really right up his alley.
No, I actually think that would actually work really well. I think you could turn it into a movie, and then you could get an adaptation from the ideas of the movie, for instance. I think an idea of a movie with Quentin Tarantino going on about the idea of, as we said, the PTSD and probably adding a little bit of Alzheimer's or something, or dementia into the mix would actually be very, very interesting psychological thriller. The only problem is, would it just be a case of him trying to relive his PTSD and to remember people in general? Or would it be an actual process of him trying to escape because he feels he's got something that he needs to take care of? Or the thing is that the premise of the idea is okay, but let me rephrase it. The subplot, I mean, what's happening to him is very good, but what's the actual plot? What's he trying to do? Is he trying to distance? Is he trying to rekindle his family ship? Is he trying to rekindle his friendship? Is he trying to get somewhere, go somewhere, trying to do something before he dies? There has to be an actual plot, but we have to get into the idea of how this person thinks and feels.
Well, it could almost be like the episode where the Ferengi guy used that machine to make him relive the Stargazer experience of the fight with the Ferengi, to where he took over the ship and was going kind of crazy. So your idea of him actually running is a great idea. He fucking breaks out of Starfleet medical because they're trying to treat him, because he was probably an admiral by now, probably retired, but yeah. And he fucking steals, the new Enterprise or something. I don't know. Pick a ship. That's a great idea. And then, you actually, there's Riker's cameo. He's got to go hunt down his former fucking captain.
Well, yeah,
and
he would
knows
actually
that
be
he's
an
sick.
admiral at that point, wouldn't he? He'd be an admiral at that point as well, Riker.
Yeah, no, and that would be a great dynamic to where Picard has just lost his fucking mind. So, but he is still Picard. He still knows how to captain a ship, and he will blow your ass up.
Yep.
And you got to deal with that as Riker and the old crew. Like, we might have to kill him, and this time he's not Locutus.
Yes.
Like
I agree with that. That sounds like an excellent premise to the actual whole idea of the show, because with that, with Lieutenant Forge and 7 of 9, even Data to an extent, obviously Data wouldn't have changed much. But obviously the actor would have to be, but Data himself wouldn't have changed, not unless you say he's upgraded and physically changed.
Well, no, he would change. Not to cut you off because you're running with a good idea, but he would change because at the end of Nemesis, Data dies and B4 is the one left. But B4 wasn't as good as Data, so you would have to play with that if you're going to introduce Data. You would have to be B4. Yeah, but go ahead. You were running with a good idea there. I'm writing this shit down. No kidding.
Well, you can do if you want. It's not going to go anywhere, is it? But no, if you have people like the Forge and you have 7 of 9 and people like Data, surely they would have had their own version of ships, especially Lieutenant Forge, for instance. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know he's got eye problems and things like that, but surely it would be a case of them type of people with their experience on the Enterprise would be able to run different ships, at least be captains, surely, or at least be first or second in command. Well, second in command, so to speak, a commander, surely. And then you've got other people from Star Trek Voyager as well. You've got Jane. I can't remember her last name. You've got Jane as well that can come into it. You've got people from Deep Space Nine that had cameos and things like that you could always come into it. The fact that he stopped docks at the ship and cameo appearances from them and what else and whatever. That'd be quite interesting. You could encumbrant quite a lot of different aspects of previous shows.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. And I wouldn't even have him dock at Deep Space Nine. I'd have him run the ship right past Deep Space Nine and have to have whoever's there. Now, Kira probably is running Deep Space Nine at this point. She would actually have to decide, do I fire upon him or not? And I would probably have her not. I'd let him go through the wormhole. But that's just the way I would write it. I would have her decide, no, I can't fire upon a Federation ship.
But that'd be an actual really good scene, wouldn't it? The fucking moral struggle of should I fire on a decorated captain and an immense admiral just because he's having a mental breakdown? What about the rest of the crew as well? I can't kill the rest of the crew because of his madness. And it would be an interesting internal struggle, just that scene alone.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm afraid they're not going to go this dark route. They're going to make it some. they want to redo the Orville because they're like, wait a minute, Discovery sucks ass. The Orville is getting ratings through the roof. What'd the Orville do? They copied the Next Generation. They even fucking called it. They said they copied it. Seth MacFarlane's like, hell yeah, I copied it.
It's a winning formula. Why the fuck would you change something? But the thing is with Star Trek is you already had white and black people, and in the actual ideas and mental state of people that followed Star Trek, aliens of all description are already integrating into society. Remember, most people that watch Star Trek immerse themselves. Well, you would know better than me, but most people would throw themselves into the immersion of the idea of actually being there. So most people are already acceptance of what's going on and the idea of integration and whatnot. So for them to come up with the whole idea of, we're going to push this agenda and that agenda, you didn't need to do that with Star Trek. The actual fans of Star Trek were probably already more progressive than what you were. In actual fact, most people would have fucked aliens. That's how progressive they were.
Yeah, most of them cheered when Kirk, every time he bedded a green alien. They're like, yeah, get him, Kirk. That is kind of weird. Just saying.
Yeah. Give her one for me, mate. Give her one from me.
Aaron's in the chat. Let's see what he's saying. He's a Star Trek fan.
Well, he's had the fucking... He can come in. He keeps on saying, I haven't got the right bloody... the right subject up. You've got the right subject. Come in. What do you mean you can't click the link? Fine. I'll just see if I can find you.
I'm actually excited about this Picard show. I really am, because Discovery was a huge letdown. and they want and they want to make a Star Trek Academy show written by the people that did Gossip Girl. Fucking yuck. Like, that's gonna make me fucking gag. I'm not even gonna watch it. Like,
oh, that's fair enough. I don't think they should do something. Right. First of all, Aaron, I have now sent it to you on Twitter. If you cannot click it on Twitter, fuck you. You're broken. But even the idea of doing it as an academy show, as I don't know, something like a high school sort of thing without the musical sort of stuff. The idea of the structural contest of the officers, because you could still have the class struggle between officers and commanders and lieutenants and so on and so forth, as in the idea and structure of where they're going and how some people are poorer and how some people can, from the rich places, not be intelligent enough to get where they're going but pay their way anyway. That would be an interesting sort of struggle. Yes, I know it plays into the narrative of the left in general, but I think it would be interesting because we do know that it does happen to some extent and some degree. You can also have the tailored adjective of the poor boy trying to get up to captain and he gets there. That is in Captain Kirk, actually, originally.
Hello?
yeah, it's a...
Yay!
Hey, what's up?
Epic fucking rage. Epic rage. Oh!
Yay?
Yeah,
Oh
no,
my God.
no.
The
Oh my,
all-seeing eye.
oh my bloody God, have I got an angry rant about Star Trek. Oh my fucking hell.
Right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It's deep breath. Okay, I watched the first season of Discovery on the Netflix, like most other people did, and my fucking God, it was shit toward the end. Oh, I could bang my head against a brick wall right fucking now how terrible it was. Shitting, sticking. Anyhow,
Sounds.
Picardo, with this Picard show, I'm in two minds about it. Very split, two minds. On one hand, I'm looking forward to it because I grew up on The Next Generation and DS9. Both those shows were on the BBC during the 90s. I'd come home from school, watch those shows, get into it. So it's like a bit of a usual nostalgia thing about it. On the other hand, I'm dreading it. I'm dreading it like a motherfucking piece of shit because Discovery was, in my opinion, a pile of vile, insane nonsense, and I'm afraid they're going to use Picard to salvage a sinking ship, and that's going to ruin all kinds of everything for Star Trek to me.
Well, they're not. Sorry to cut in, but they're not going to be putting Picard in with Discovery. They're making their own series with Picard, so it won't even be anything to do with that universe.
I know that. I'm fully aware of that. I know it's set, as you were saying a few minutes ago. I know it's set after Nemesis.
20 years.
Yeah, that so far is its only saving grace. On the very limited bit of information we got going on right now, that's its saving grace. However, the past few weeks or so, I've been keeping track of various Star Trek YouTube commentator videos, and there's a few of them who apparently haven't been paying attention to that kind of detail, and they're under the impression that because of quantum, there's going to be time travel involved, and Picard's going to end up in Discovery somehow. All kinds of crazy, stupid ideas. I recently learned about this YouTube channel called Dictor Van Doomcock, right? And you have to see it to believe it. But he's a complete Star Trek / Star Wars conspiracy theorist. It's an entire act. It's hilarious to look at, but one of his conspiracy theories is as I just said, Picard's going to somehow end up in Discovery. And
I don't see that. I don't see why they would waste an idea of being able to bring Picard back and having the idea of him, even as something as an admiral, with dealing with a young buck that's now trying to become the version of Picard as he was when he was younger. And Picard trying to guide him. I think they would miss a trick with just wasting him, bringing him back. I don't see why they would even ask Picard to come back like that.
But
Well,
this,
no, and real quick, Aaron. I was watching commentator that does a lot of track in Game of Thrones that I really like. He was talking about that rumor, how okay, they're gonna blow up Romulus because that happened in the movies, and then they're going to also blow up Vulcan because that happened in Discovery, and they're gonna merge the timelines and create a whole new one. That
I heard
sounds
about
completely
that.
retarded. That sounds completely retarded. And here's the thing: Patrick Stewart said no to this show. He said no to it not once but twice, and they kept going. Hey, dude, come on, let's do it. If he said yes, then I bet you he pulled a Kirk and said, I want creative control of my character. And that's what's going to save it.
I heard about that same conspiracy theory about, what was it, 2, maybe 3 days ago, that Picard's return would because quantum or sci-fi magic, however you want to phrase it, would do exactly what you just said, that he would somehow merge the Kelvin universe, which is the 3 JJ movies, with the primetime universe, and this new universe, there's no Vulcan or no Romulus, and it's just poof. And I tell you, if they dare pull off that kind of stupid idea, I'm gonna epic rage. Ooh.
Well, I can't see, like, even from somebody who's not an avid Star Trek fan, as obviously you two are, I can't see why they would put the idea of merging the idea of Romulus and Vulcan not being in Star Trek. Because let's be honest, the original Star Trek, Kirk's Star Trek, was a case of that was Star Trek. You had the Romulans, the Klingons, and the Vulcans. Those were your 3 major aliens. Same as in Next Generation. Those were your major aliens. I don't see why they would take that out. There is no reason for them to take that out at all.
Well, one potential answer that one theme that's like the foundation to all these conspiracy theories that I've been hearing about. Back in the day, the copyrights for the movies, for Star Trek, and also the TV show came under the one roof of the production company called Viacom, which split at some point and now became Paramount and CBS. CBS owns the television copyrights to Star Trek, so all the TV shows, CBS own it. The movies, that's from the motion picture all the way, all 13, 14 movies right now, they're owned by Paramount. Okay. Technical reasons I don't really remember or know about right now, but that's how it is.
Well, Paramount has the biggest studio, so that's the reason why they would have the movie side of it, because it would have been in their studio that created it.
Well, no, and you know what the shittiest part about that is CBS licensed the idea, their Star Trek license on a temporary license to Paramount. That's why they were able to make the new JJ movies. But every time that license runs out, they make a new movie to keep the license because it's a temporary license. Like, there's a lot of weird shit going on within the Star Trek, like, behind the scenes.
Another thing that I keep on hearing about is that the ultimate head honcho of CBS is a guy called Les Moonves, right? And from what I've been told, he's on record that he doesn't like Star Trek. He doesn't like science fiction to begin with. Right. So because of his opinions and influences, that's one big reason why Enterprise has cancelled before its time. And that's why since 2005 there's not been any Star Trek on TV. And even when Paramount was saying, listen, man, we want to make a new Star Trek movie, it's going to be great, CBS are like, well, no. And that's one reason why they had this alternative copyright coming in, and that's why we've got the movie set in a parallel universe instead of a prime timeline. But then all of a sudden, all this streaming service kicked off, like Netflix, Hulu, all these other shows, and Les Moonves is like, hang about, that sounds a lot of profit going on in there. What can we do to catch up and like get CBS on the wagon train? Let's make our own exclusive TV show. What can we do? Hang about, Star Trek sounds popular, and that's why Discovery was exclusively on CBS All Access instead of normal TV.
Yeah, and that went very well, didn't it?
Yeah, well, no, well, it hit and miss. And from what I've heard,
I was being facetious. Sorry, mate. I was being
well,
facetious.
all right, well, from what I've heard, and bear in mind everything I've been saying is like conspiracy theory and all that stuff. When CBS All Access sold the rights to Netflix to show Discovery all outside of America, the price that Netflix paid for pretty much covered all the production costs to make Discovery. So it was like pretty much risk free for CBS to make Discovery happen. But then, as the show progressed, Netflix apparently got really pissed off with what they were sold, weren't too impressed by it, and when it comes to season two, they're not willing to pay out as much money for it as they did for season one. So that means CBS has got to fork out more money, which means whether or not, to the extent of that success, depends on whether or not we'll get a season three onwards.
No, that's fine. I'm in the middle of reading a breaking story at the minute. Mad Dodge, would you like to continue this for just about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I can tell everybody what's going on, if you can, please?
Oh yeah, no. I've actually heard those rumors as well. And I heard that the head of CBS is trapped in, got caught up in the Me Too movement. In other words, he fucked up and he's on his way out, which means they could revoke the temporary copyright, say we own Star Trek, we're going back to the prime timeline. That's how we're gonna fucking handle it. And I think that's what this card fully will be, a return to what we want. Every Star Trek fan has said what we want. We want you either to do the Titan with Riker or something that's set after Nemesis. I want to see Minion with
your robot in
play Star Trek Online.
Mad Dodge, your robot's in a bit, mate. You need to go back a tiny bit.
Yeah, well, I've heard similar things to what you've said, Mad Dodge. I've not heard about the Titan thing. The version I keep hearing, it's been a while since I've heard it, was a Captain Worf series, but that's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. It's in canon, right? At the end of DS9, Worf was made Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire. So him being a starship captain is a hefty demotion.
Okay, is my mic working now?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, I'll talk slower. I think it messes up when I start going in the speed talking. Okay, so Michael Dorn has pitched the same show idea for about 6 or 7 years. His idea is Worf gives up his ambassadorship and joins the Klingon Empire fully, and he's actually the captain or the admiral of either a Klingon fleet of ships or a ship. So he kind of takes over Martok's role within DS9 during the Dominion War. And he wants to do that, and then he wants to run into like Riker and the Titan at times, or maybe I don't know the details, nobody does. His script is probably in his fucking safe at home. He ain't letting that thing out. But yeah, that's what I heard, is he would be more like either a governor or a admiral or whatever in the Klingon Empire. He would no longer be Federation. It'd be a Klingon centric show.
Okay, I hadn't quite heard it like that. I might have been under the false impression he commanded a Starfleet vessel.
Wait, hang on a second. Wait, hang on a second. Wouldn't that in itself be an amazing idea for Star Trek? The idea of a Star Trek-based themed series on the idea of what it was like to be in the Klingon Federation or the Klingon Empire and doing a ship like that.
I think that was the whole premise of Michael Dorn's idea in the first place, what we were just talking about.
Yeah, and they keep telling him no because, like we said, the head of CBS is a fucking cock nozzle and won't fucking do any Star Trek until it's financially expedient. And that's messed up. I hate it when they do that. The creative, no, not only do they do that, no, this is what really makes me mad, and I'll try not to rant so my mic doesn't mess up. It really pisses me off because on one hand, the dude hates Star Trek, right? On the other, he's like, fuck fan films. We're going to sue the shit out of them. Oh, the guy that used to play Sulu, you know, he goes all those Star Trek conventions and keeps making us money. Fuck him too. I don't care if he's in that fan film. Like, fuck you too. You know, like, who are you, Suge Knight? Go the fuck home, man. Get the fuck out of here.
I admit, I've got when it comes to films, I've got a bit of an opinion that might be unpopular with some Star Trek fans. I know there's a lot of, well, some say it's a lot of fans. I just call it a noisy minority of fans who don't like the Kelvinverse movies. I actually liked them. I mean, let's be clear. I can understand why some fans didn't like the Kelvinverse films, but I myself liked them. And it's one of the reasons why this conspiracy theory I heard explained a minute ago about trying to merge the Prime timeline with the Kelvin timeline is such a bad idea. It would just ruin two versions of Star Trek that I just happen to really enjoy.
Yeah, sometimes merging doesn't really go together very well. I would like to continue this conversation, but I don't think we're going to, as it's 4 minutes past 11. I'm not sure if Mad Dodge has got anything to do, but I'm getting fucking tired, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to ask anybody for their last words, but if you want to make any sort of final comments, then please do, and then I'll just quickly wrap up and then we'll get off.
I just want to say thank you for a few minutes and having me on here and listen. Thank you for giving me the chance to rant about Star Trek. So I appreciate being here. Thank you.
That's right. You're always welcome, mate. You should know that. Just let me know when you want to come on next time.
Once I can connect to whatever you're talking about at the time, I'll gladly be there.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Sounds good. After you, Mad Dodge.
Oh, yeah. You know, thank you as always. I'm pretty sure I'm doing the red eye. I'm in search of a panel right now, but we should be starting here soon. But yeah, I'm going to talk about false flaggers on YouTube and how they should know better. And
especially when the Mando out. Especially when the Mando out.
Exactly. That's going to be the topic tonight. And I'm kind of in a Star Trek mood, so I might talk a little bit more about that. But thank you, as always, Common Sense Guy. And I did already hit a like on your video, so.
Yay, that means I've got 4 likes, because I did it 3 times. I'm joking, I can only do it once. I'm only signed into 1 account, honest. I don't really have anything to say. Thank you for everybody that come on. So thank you to MC, thank you to Memes, obviously thank you to Aaron, and obviously thank you very much to Mad Dodge, and to the rest of you bunch of cunts. Why the fuck didn't you lot come on? You could have asked me any questions that you liked. You could have asked me anything about anything, and you missed your opportunity. You missed your opportunity to ask me absolutely anything. So with that being said, thank you very much, and I'll see you all again really soon. Bye-bye for now.